Plastic crack is a thing.
I totally am in on the plastic crack.
I think plastic crack is a perfect description. Because once you get addicted, you gotta have your next fix. Where's the next big thing?
I mean, I guess I kind of resonate with the plastic crack analogy. Yeah, for sure.
I'm just a user and a heavy user, I guess.
I agree. I mean, it is plastic crack. Once you get that one piece, you're hooked.
You know what? There is no misdiagnosing plastic crack.
Welcome to Plastic Chats, the special interviews of the Plastic Crack documentary series. Today's topic is...
Who you gonna call?
So, let's start the show!
Hi, my name is Guillermo Olivo, and this is Plastic Chats. This is an additional content for the Plastic Crack documentary series. For those of you in the future, this episode was recording during the 2020 pandemic while some of us were still quarantined. This is the very first episode, and to keep a tradition with the Plastic Crack documentary series, we have a very, very special guest today. He happens to be the very first opening sequence of the Plastic Crack Season 1, Episode 1, and I'm super grateful and super thankful to have Robert Barbieri here with us today. So how you doing, Robert?
Good, Guillermo. How you doing, buddy?
Great. I mean, hanging, swinging, on a daily basis. Let's meet our guest. Robert is also known as Bobby's 80s. Is that correct?
Bobby 80s.
Bobby 80s. He's a mega 80s collector. He's I wouldn't just say a Kenner boy, because I know that he collects some other lines from some other companies. But if you are in the realm of 82 to almost 90, I will dare to say Robert is right there. He's not into modern stuff. That you're not into modern stuff?
For the most part. I mean, if modern things are retroed, then yeah. If they make something old new, they bring something back that's referencing an old thing, then I might have a little dabble in it. But yeah, I'd rather put my money towards vintage, if anything, because you know as well as I do that today toys aren't cheap.
Yeah.
New or old.
Yeah, for sure. And you have no idea the amount of messages that we got saying like, whoa, that guy, the very first guy on the show, the very first guy on the episode, because the way that we did it, I think it came out beautifully, because we walk into the house expecting to see a normal, air quotes on that, normal collection like mine, which is just a room. I have a few rooms, but just a room. But then no, your case is totally different. It never stops. It's just that crazy. So I'm so happy to revisit some of that. And with that said, you also Robin Hood, Mask, Thundercats, RoboCop, such a myriad of different lines that they do not necessarily align to each other. It's just you're trying to recreate a Toys R Us, don't you?
In a sense, I mean, it comes down to if it was a movie or a cartoon that had a toy line based off of it from the 80s, early 90s. That's my nostalgia, and that's where I focus on. So
you watch a lot of TV then.
I was an only child, so the TV was my friend. I didn't have any siblings to argue with,
It's not only he's an amazing collector, he's an amazing human being. I met him and his wife, and then we actually saw each other afterwards. And I like to say that we fostered this great relationship due to that, and due to toy collecting. Toy collecting is the perfect glue to have this type of great relationship. However, and this room might not be adequate, but Robert is not a G.I. Joe fan. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. It's just that it was just before my time. I was born in late 84, and my growing up was late 80s, early 90s. And as far as reruns go of G.I. Joe, I mean, I've seen a couple episodes as a kid, but I wasn't there in 82, to get the brunt of it when it first peaked a lot of people's childhoods, So as far as nostalgia goes, I never had them as a kid, so I never had that connection. So I might not be collecting G.I. Joe, but I do respect it.
No, I know, and I know that you don't mean to disrespect that. There's a few of us trying to get you in there, and you're being very, very strong.
Well, there's a few things that I wish I could collect, like G.I. Joe or Dino Riders, but it's something that I feel like I should have started years ago, because starting right now, as you can see,
oh yeah,
especially because of a lot of shows are bring it up, there's a lot of newcomers to the hobby.
Yeah, and the massive toy lines. I mean, if you're a completist like yourself,
yeah,
that line can break the bank real quick.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just with the flag alone, you're breaking the bank. Just one item.
Right.
So to start right now, it's not realistic for me, especially with the house that you've seen. I don't have any more room anyway. So.
But what about Robin Hood?
Robin Hood. Well, that's 1990. That's Kenner. So that's already two things right there that lines up into my childhood. And it was a big thing when it first came out, and the toy line. It unfortunately, didn't see everything that Kenner had planned for it, but still, it just fits in that time era where, and plus, the biggest thing is that it's very affordable. So it's a short line, it's very easy to complete, and it's just one of those things where it just fits in the Kenner realm for my era.
It's super affordable. I was actually able to get, not so long ago, actually, I think last year, I was able to get my hand on a full run mental car on Punch, and the cars were so pristine. I don't have an emotional connection to the toys, but the cars were so pristine and they were so crisp that I'm like, I can't say no to this, and I ended up grading them, and I just love the way they look.
They're very the artwork on the cards, the packaging is very displayable. So when you see a lot of the footage from my house, I mean, there's a lot of boxes on display. They might not be full because the loose toy is actually underneath them in the case, in the glass case. Right. But the box itself, though, it brings something to the room.
Right, and that always helped. The way to display it. But on my case, there's also there's a lot of shared real estate between Robin Hood and Endor.
Yes, yes.
It's a lot of repurposed malls, and they're I have different Gamorrean guards of different countries and different colors and variants and stuff. And of course, the Friar is right next to it because of the same molding and stuff like that.
So that's two connections right there.
Correct. Yeah. So I like I said, I wasn't judging the Robin Hood. I actually liked it, but but let's keep escalating the bar. You're also a heavy-duty, big league Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan.
Yes, absolutely.
And that part of your house is just mind-blowing.
You mean the whole back part of my living room, from floor to ceiling, and still, still not enough room, to have it all out on display. So,
but the Turtles, what? It was just the right age, the right time.
Yeah, I mean, 88 to 93 was the prime of Ninja Turtles, and the movies came out in 90 and 91 or 92. Mm-hmm. That was my childhood right there.
Ice Baby.
Yeah, Ice Baby, yeah.
Go Ninja, go, 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 go.
Which I still don't understand why we never got an action figure of him, in the line,
We should. I met him like 10 years ago, and I told him, and he happens to be a very big league fan of, he has a bunch of Turtle stuff, and
I'm aware.
He plays the music still. He always makes references. He's very proud of that.
Well, he even has a tattoo of the movie on his shin, I think it is. On the back of his shin, I think it is.
Right. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
I'm pretty. I think I've seen it, but anyways, just to go along with he's a big fan. Yeah, absolutely. It's great that he still is.
We're talking about Vanilla Ice for those that don't know what we're saying. However, and that's how we shot it. The whole walkthrough through your house.
Yeah.
We end up the tour in the crown jewel of your collection, which is, who are you going to call?
The real Ghostbusters.
There you go. Why? I know that you love toys. I know you're very passionate about toys. I know that you love collectibles, but I also know that if we make an analogy like I do, with having kids, my first kid is a Star Wars. That's the one that made me a dad, and then I had Joe's, and then I had a lot of kids. But in your case, Ghostbusters has to be the top of your things, right?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. That's fair. It's crazy because it was there, then it was gone, then it was almost like a lost love that you rekindled with, you know? Because I had it as a kid, and all the toys, the cartoon I freaking loved, and I still do. It's still one of those shows that you can still watch today without cringing, you know? It was a smart show that wasn't very PSA, you know?
Right. It wasn't a commercial. Is that what you're trying to say? It was not
Exactly.
a commercial, although it was.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's every cartoon is a commercial for the toys, you know? It's a marketing ploy, but at the same time, though, you didn't take it that way, you know? You can watch this show about where Egon talks scientifically, and you can understand what he's talking about. It was well written and well displayed.
The narrative was a little bit more complex than let's say Joe's or He-Man.
He-Man or Thundercats. I mean, or the original Transformers. I mean, I love the cartoons, but there's a point where I'm like, okay, I need a break because all the PSA or the say no to drugs kids, you know, it takes its toll on me as an adult, you know.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think Real Ghostbusters, I think, is one of my all-time favorite cartoons, and yes, the toys have come back full circle to me, where, yeah, I've dominated the toy version of it, and then but you know, as a collector, there's always the itch for more, and so what do you do when the toys are all collected? You know?
Are you in that? Have you gotten to that point where there's nothing else to collect?
I have gotten to that point where, at least vintage toys, you know, obviously I have all the Kenner toys. I'm now after the random merchandise that was developed from the show and the movies.
So if you have to compare movies versus cartoon, would you agree that the cartoon might have a little bit more impact on you than the movie, or?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think that the cartoon, it just has more to offer as far as, I mean, think about it. You have 7 seasons of content.
Mm-hmm.
You have a whole toy line from the 80s. You know, it still boggles my mind why they never made ones based off the movies, you know?
Right.
I mean, obviously the first movie, the blockbuster it became was not planned, you know? They were not ready for the first movie to be what it was. So that's why all we got were like shirts and stickers for the first 2 years.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But then you saw what happened with Ghostbusters 2, where they just exploded with merchandise. I mean, anything that you could look at in a store had the logo stapled on it, you know?
And it basically overflowed the market, right?
I would say so. But then also at the same time, though, you know, competition comes out, Ninja Turtles rolls out, and gives it a run for its money, you know, the cartoon at least. And I have to admit, I'm one of those not collectors, but one of those kids that merged and crossed the fence, you know, so to speak. I went from Ghostbusters, and then as soon as Ninja Turtles came out, I went to Ninja Turtles, and my entire room had Ninja Turtle toys. You know, Christmas time was all Ninja Turtles at one point. But then eventually I went from Ninja Turtles to Power Rangers. So, you know, the cycle never ends. But as an adult, you know, you rewind and you do it all over again. So that's the fun part.
So is it okay to assume that you're complete with the real Ghostbusters, or?
Yeah, I'm content with it. There's always that one thing that I'm still looking for, or one thing I can't find, you know. And
what is it?
Well, like I said before, where I like to put things on display, like the boxes and that kind of stuff. And what do you do when you have all the toys? Well, you collect the merchandise, the store displays,
or the prototypes.
The prototypes, the theater displays, the video store displays, everything. The internal prototypes, internal documents. But honestly, I cannot find the ectoplasm display box for the slime cans that you would find in a store. So, like, you know how some of the toys would actually come with a can of slime, right? Mm-hmm. Well, kids being kids, the slime would dry up in the carpet, you know, mom would get mad, and you'd run out of it, and so they would have this refill, you know, box where you can just buy the can alone without having to buy a toy all over again. And it was a nice graphics. The graphics on it are amazing, you know? And so it's one of those things where it has haunted me. I don't want to use you could use the word holy grail, but there's more than one, you know? Once you get it, there's always another one.
Oh yeah.
So I would say right now, yeah, I could end my collection right now if I can get that display box and be content. You know, I would not have it all because there's always something that pops up that I never knew existed. The UK and Europe got merchandise, you know, backpacks, T-shirts, whatever.
That's a rabbit hole. Once you go foreign,
well,
that's crazy. Going foreign in any line is just, you know.
Absolutely, and that's why I would never go to GI Joe today in 2020. It's just I can't do it. The rabbit hole is just so deep.
And it's a lie. It's a lie to say, well, I'm just gonna get the ones that I had. That's a total lie. Because if you actually go for the ones that you had, that won't take that much or that much money. But once you get them all, you're gonna start saying, I might need this vehicle, and then it gets to a point like some of us are like, well, now I have to get the one from Argentina or from India or from Venezuela, and that just becomes a real issue. But I like that you use the word hunted.
Well, it happened to me because just like you said, it's a slippery slope because I wanted to have, especially with Ghostbusters, I wanted to have the main 4 guys still sealed, right, on the card, in the package.
Oh yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm going to get these 4, I'm good. But then as you go around hunting and searching and negotiating and networking, one point I came across the Fright features, the incomplete set of Fright features that were case fresh.
Ooh.
And so unpunched, case fresh, mint.
Ooh.
And so I'm like, okay, and the price was right. So I got to have it. And then that started the trickling down effect where, okay, now I get the rest of them.
Ooh. Yeah.
You know?
No, now I need to have them all. It's printed on the card. Collect them all.
It's easy though, just like Pokemon. You gotta collect them all. But it's easy though when a line that's been over and done with, unlike GI Joe, which is still going. You know, in a way, it's still going. But with Kenner Ghostbusters, you know, there's like about 46 figures, and then once you get all those, you're good. You know, so
once you get those, you need the prototypes or the foreign variants, and it in reality it never ends because everything was designed to be mass produced and to be franchised. And if you want to have, I don't suggest to go and get them all.
Yeah.
Because that can turn into something bitter, and it takes the fun away sometimes. So
it does.
That's like take it easy, take it step by step. But with that said, we have this little segment that we throw before we actually walk into the main topic of the episode, and it's basically a show and tell of any recent find, any recent purchase. So, show me what you got.
Show me what you got.
Okay, well, it's been hard to do a lot of things right now, with everything going on in the world, but there's still some things that I can acquire, and we've all, we've seen all of our friends find a few things. So
it's also time for deals. It
is. It really is. Some of the things I found and other people have found, it's been amazing. But one thing I did get. This is from the UK. We talked about the things from the UK.
For those who are not watching and listening, can you describe the beauty that you have in your hand, because it looks amazing?
This, honestly, I didn't even know this existed. This is one of those things where, it just shows up and you grab it when it shows up. And I can say that for a lot of my collection where I've only seen it once and I had to get it when I saw it.
And this is a 3D bop bag?
Yeah, this is one of those like plastic kids bop bags. You just punch it and it bounces back and forth. You fill up with air, it's a bop bag. And so, yeah, there's an image on the back of it of Stay Puft to give it a 3D effect.
Okay.
And so it's got Slimer and it's got the original.
And it's sealed. It's never been opened.
No, it's open, but it has the box.
Oh, okay, great.
So I have inflated this, but just to get photos. Yes, it holds air still to this day.
So it wasn't punched that much for the previous owner.
Amazingly enough, the kid must have gotten bored with it because it's immaculate condition. It really is. And
you said it's from the UK, so we never got something like that here in the States?
You'd be surprised what we never got in the USA. I don't know who was in charge of marketing back in the day, but they must have favored the UK because they got so much stuff. And my wallet can attest to that because of all the time I spent on shipping,
Right, from overseas.
it's crazy. I actually had to do a lot of collectors do, and we have friends over there, that create a pile for us, and then we ship all at one time.
Wow, just to share just to tip to contribute on the shipping cost.
Exactly. So instead of spending $25 per item, I might be spending $40 for 10 items.
Right. But then you that's a great excuse for an addict, though, because
it is.
You're spending less on shipping, but you're getting more items, right?
Exactly. But I also got to wait longer too, and but you got, it's part of the community though. You network and you develop relationships with people that you never would have met otherwise, but because of the hobby, you make these connections, and it just like you and me,
Right.
If it wasn't for this hobby, we wouldn't be talking right now. So
correct. We actually make trades after the films, and we actually deal with the stuff that you didn't want and I wanted it, and that's what it is. You also have something else you were telling me offline?
Yeah. So this right here. So what do you do when you collect all the toys and you move on to prototypes, right? If you're able to. Mm-hmm. And so in my travels, one of the most recent finds was from Kenner Police Academy.
Wow.
And it's an unused artwork, original art. It's actually colored in and penned. And it's of Commandant Eric Lassard, if you remember from Punky Brewster.
Wow.
The guy who played the father. And it was also the actor in the movie. This is his cartoon version from the series.
Wow. And you had a frame, or it came like that?
No, I any kind of artwork that I can easily frame, I do it immediately. With the UV protection plexiglass and all that bells and whistles. I do need to get a matte frame for this just to cover up the miscellaneous. Right. But for the most part, though, just to get it protected in the time being, because I'm in between houses right now, so once it's on the wall, it'll be all perfect.
I usually pass on that type of stuff because I ran out of walls.
Yeah.
And then I have a few that I couldn't just pass. Like I have animation cells from stuff like that I can't just pass. But at the same time, then when I see them in the closet, I go, this is not where it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be on a wall. But I ran out of walls. I mean, what can I say? So I mean, kudos to you. Are you gonna have a wall for that type of guys? I know that's not the only one. You have more.
Oh, I have plenty more. It's just that we would need more time than we have to go through it all,
I know.
But honestly, though, you don't need a wall. You can put it behind the toys, If you have a display case that's big enough, it could be the wall of the display case.
Right. If it's not loaded with toys. Like, space is always the big issue in toy collecting.
Space is always the big issue, yes.
And when you move, like we both did recently, and then you find more room, then you better fill it up quickly, because if you leave a place empty, you're going to start buying stuff just because that empty spot on the wall is going to kill you. It's going to hunt you down.
Oh, yeah.
And you resonate with that?
Trust me, my OCD, cringes whenever I see an empty spot. I'm like, okay, something needs to go there, But yeah, I mean,
I hate empty spots.
It really is. It's like, what am I missing here?
Yeah.
Like,
my kid always makes fun of me because he says, you're always complaining about empty spots, but at the same time, you're always complaining of not having enough room. Like I have to, when I move, I have to get rid of my Transformers because I had no room. And then there's a few lines that are coming that I want I want to sink my teeth into it. And I need to leave some real estate for those. And, and I refuse to keep stuff in bins and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the same way. I mean, if I can avoid it, it needs to be on display somewhere. And you've seen how I've made, use of space.
I know.
I have, cardboard displays. Right. I have cardboard displays on top of shelves. It's just.
It's just crazy. Well, with that said, let's walk into the topic of the show.
Today's topic is...
Who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters.
And of course, who better than you? Probably not even, because if I ever talk to Dan Aykroyd, I'm pretty sure they're not going to give me the same inside side that you guys that you can give me. However, we cover. Let's assume that there's someone in the audience that have no idea about the real Ghostbusters or the toy lines and the cartoon. Can you give us a brief history walkthrough?
Yeah, sure. I will lay it all out, and you can edit it later.
There you go.
So basically, you have to start from the beginning. So you start with the movie, right? So in '84, the movie came out, and it became a bigger blockbuster than they anticipated. And it got to the point where there was not enough merchandise to feed the hunger of these fans. So it's like, okay, a couple years later, they're like, okay, let's see if there's a market for a cartoon. Because even though it was more of a scary, comedy-like movie, kids liked it. Even though it wasn't focused towards them as an audience, they attached to the franchise. So they're like, okay, let's see if we can make a cartoon that appeals to kids. And they started out with this pilot pitch concept that's only like 4 minutes long. And that was used to sell the idea of a series for syndication. And so once that pitch concept was made and the series was sold to ABC, at that point, it's done its job. And so it kind of dissolved into history. And so then 7 seasons of the real Ghostbusters comes out, and then toys come out. Kids have their childhood.
They do well. They sell well.
They sell well, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then after '91, when the series ended and the toys ended, it just became part of our childhood, and then we just moved on from there. But then in 2008, when Time Life got the rights to do an exclusive release of the whole series on DVD for the first time, they decided to do all these special features and interview people from the show, the voice actors, the producers, directors, and just to go behind the scenes and just tell fans what they might not know about what happened, behind the scenes. And that's when we first learned of, as a person in the public, not inside the studio, but an outside source. This is when we first learned that there was a pitched concept, a pilot to the series.
An actually animated pitch. Not just a verbal pitch.
No, not just a verbal pitch, not just artwork on a board, like a full animated 4-minute flick. And basically,
it wasn't even meant to air, right? It was just a pitch.
Well, it did air. Here's the thing. On the Time Life box set, it says never aired. And this is one of the problems that you deal with as a collector and as a historian of collectors, of collections, is that you get different stories, and you get employees who misremember. Because a lot of times, this is what the hard part as a collector, as a passionate collector, is to understand that to a lot of people back in the day, this was just a job. It was a stressful job, but it was a normal job to them, where it was to pay the bills. So once that series was over, it just kind of washes over, and then they move on to the next project, the next show, right? Then they're starting to get to the age of retirement. Now people like me are hunting them down and be like, hey, do you remember this? Hey, wasn't this cool? It's like,
remember what you did at that gig 35 years ago? Like,
exactly. And so I'm trying to ask someone to remember what they did 35 years ago. I mean, do you remember what you were doing 35 years ago? To a fine detail,
Right.
And so what happens is you get a lot of stories, and the hard part is finding all the actual artifacts to line up with that story. So Kevin Altieri, who is the director of the pilot and also did a lot of storyboards and directors of the series, and he actually came up with the concept of the commercial breaks. I don't know if you remember from the cartoon where the ghost was like sawing out of the No Ghost logo, or he was just doing something wacky for like that quick 3-second.
The transition,
exactly. He actually created that. And so I talked to him after finding the only copy of the pilot. That was the one thing that's crazy about being in this hobby, is that you come across things you're not even looking for. You
have to take a pause in that, because how you found.
Yes.
That's the story that you need to make emphasis on that, because it's just beautiful.
So back to Kevin real quick, because I'll keep going things in chronological order. Kevin is on the Time Life box set describing how he came up with the idea for the pitch concept with Eddie Fitzgerald. And the two of them were told at at the 11th hour, saying, "Hey, we need a concept." So storyboard it, and then they sent the work over to Japan, the studio that would do all the artwork, and they would send the film print over back to Deke in LA, and that's where they would do all the music and the syncing up. And so then the final print is made where they can now pitch it to studios and broadcasters alike and say, okay, this is our idea for a cartoon, and we think it's going to do great, and eventually it gets sold. And
mind you, let me add something to that. Some of the big networks like ABC back then had a very specific allocation of budget for these type of things, because it was a calculated risk. They prefer to spend money of what we call proof of concept, which entitles to create music, create a design, actually make a wannabe episode, so they can have a good look and feel of it. And they don't do that anymore. They actually go from a PowerPoint to a big flop because of that. Back then, they spend money. It was wiser, from my perspective, on this proof of concepts, and then you get this thing going from buildings or floors in a big corporate building, and then someone say yes and sign off, and then you go into an actual production. So this is technically not a pilot that we're talking about. We're talking about a proof of concept.
Right. But it's been called pilot in the past by, again, it's one of those things where it's like, what do you call it? Because it's only 4 minutes long. It's not.
Who are you going to call?
Yeah. And it's funny, though, because you're right. It's not a pilot, because you've actually seen TV shows where the pilot airs, you know, and it's technically part of the series. It's episode 1, essentially, or it's episode 0, you know. But no, this never aired as part of the series, because the pilot is based off the movie. And it's based off the movie because they still had no idea what the show was going to be.
Correct. It's like a tallying the actual movie. Exactly.
So that's why, you know, Stay Puft and Slimer are still evil, and the guys are still in the same colored jumpsuits, the tan jumpsuits. And what the great part of it, the concept though, is that if you look back, if you compare the two, the intro to the actual series is basically a short version of that pilot. It's a 30-second version of that 4-minute, you know, animation, and a lot of the animation segments were reused in that series, in that intro. And I actually have art that proves that. I actually have the end sequence where the ghosts are lined up to be trapped by the Ghostbusters, and Stay Puft is there, and all the other ghosts are there, and it's pretty cool because I have the background that goes with it too.
Wow.
And a quick history of animation is that there might be a few hundred or a few thousand cells of a character for a segment, right? But for the most part, the background, if it's not moving, then there's only one of them. So to put that into perspective, a collector there could be 100 collectors that have one cell each, but only one of those 100 collectors has the background.
Correct. And they could be identical. Let's add that. It could be nearly identical, because
nearly identical. It all depends on how fast the character's moving, but the background, I have the original painted background, and I matched up with the pilot and the intro series.
And it matched perfectly.
How
exciting is that?
But here's a quick thing though. This goes back to what I was talking about with misremembering. Kevin told me that nothing was reused. It all had to get redone. So having that artwork though, it proves that they did reuse some of it, you know.
Because I don't know about that case in particular, I have to say, but what happens is it depends of the amount of money that you get to that proof of concept. Usually it was a cheap amount of money. It was like you know, just grab something so you can go and do it. But it doesn't equate to the amount of money that you need for an actual episode. Then the game changed and they actually spend more money, and these proof of concept became the actual pilot, and it was good quality to air, and hence why some of them became episode 1 or episode 0. In this case, what you're saying is that from his perspective, this was like the cheap tryout to pitch it and get it approved, but not necessarily something that you will repurpose or use later.
Right.
But it did.
They did, but just like with any animation studio, if there's a way to reuse something to save time and money, they'll do it. So so Filmation and Hanna-Barbera, they're very notorious for this. Where
He-Man, he runs the very same way every time because, well, there was another factor. So like there was a strike, there was a big issue with Japan and China, but He-Man is notorious for reusing the same cells.
Or like with Hanna-Barbera, you got Fred and Barney running, and the legs are just moving the same circular motion.
Correct.
Every episode, they reuse that. There's not like there's a million of those cells. It's the same 10.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Back to Ghostbusters though, it's just like so that's what happened. So in 2008, the world is introduced to this pitch concept the first time. Although we would learn 10 years later that it did air for almost like a promo during HBO. So
not syndicated, just HBO.
Yes. So, but here's the thing: the reason we know this is because someone has a VHS recording from when they were kids.
Wow.
It's crazy.
They grab it from the air.
They grab it from the air.
Wow.
And so, but it's altered. It has HBO narration over it, saying because what happened was there's a big promotion of Ghostbusters on HBO in summer of '86. Ghostbusters the movie was coming to cable for the very first time, and it was coming on HBO. So there was this whole, marketing around it, saying, make sure you have HBO so you can watch Ghostbusters at home. And so, and that was in '86. And so fall of '86 comes the new series, right? So they did this whole cross promotion. And so they actually used the animation of the pilot as part of like a promo.
Yeah, I don't want to assume, but it sounds like the promotions from my own experience, and you have the same experience on that end. Like the promotions department probably this is a theory, probably had like, oh, you need to push this new platform this new property that we're having, and they're like, well, give me something to promote, and that's the only thing that they had ready at that time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they were still coming up with the concept of what the actual series was going to be, who was going to the models, who was going to look like who, and what color their suits were going to be. And so at the time, in spring of '86, the pilot was the only thing that was available that they could actually air that was ready. And so, but it's crazy though. It took until 2017-18 to learn this,
Wow.
Because
lost history there.
Yeah, it is. So a lot of things I've uncovered, through this randomness of events. And so, as a historian of collectors and collections and pop culture, it's a crazy and doing interviews, and it's crazy the things that you come across, and it's great when you can connect the dots,
Right. It's like reopening a cold case from 30 years ago.
Right. Absolutely.
You gotta talk to the old witness who are oldies now and retired people, and but at the same time, that has to feel that they're. Tell me that your heart was not pumping when you found these new pieces of evidence, and then you can tie them up with what you had already.
It's an unbelievable feeling. It really is. It's because you really do feel like you're building a puzzle, and it's that feeling that you get when you find that missing piece that you've been looking for. Nice. And so for those that are listening that don't know, I mean, if you were listening, so in 2008 is when we first get introduced to the pilot. And then, but here's the thing though, Kevin Altieri is the only reason why that was on there to begin with, because Sony and Deke Entertainment didn't have a copy of it. So when they interviewed Kevin and saying, hey, we're going to have you do this for this box set. And he said, well, I have this on VHS. Do you guys need that? And they're like, yes. And so he actually stole a copy back in the day because it's part of his work.
He made a copy on a VHS tape.
Yeah, he had to actually hold wires together to get it to record. Wow. He was literally, because he jerry-rigged it, he MacGyvered it to a VCR because they did not want this to, get out, but he wanted a copy of his work, and like any of us would,
for a demo reel or something like that.
Demo reel, or just to, it's you put your heart and soul into it.
Wow.
And so, because of him, is the only reason that we have audio for the pilot at all.
So the audio comes from that VHS copy?
Correct.
Wow. What about the HBO release, also VHS tape version?
So, if you know if anything about like channels or broadcast studios like HBO, they have these magnetic recycle machines.
Mm-hmm.
Where back in the day, yes, everything that airs was on a tape at one point. But they, for cost effectiveness and also just to clear up some space on the shelf for things that are no longer useful or obsolete, they sometimes recycle old tapes so that footage does not get out to the public, that dumpster dive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they also use these magnetic machines to erase and reuse.
Mm-hmm.
So
storage was the main issue. Like, you
storage
get
was
to
the
a
main
point that you need to rent a facility just to store tapes, and it makes no sense.
Well, it makes sense if it's an actual event, like a sporting event. Like I used to work for ESPN, so I've seen the libraries where there's tapes from 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's archival footage. So if you want to watch a Mike Tyson game, Mike Tyson fight from 1990, they have it. But for a broadcast studio to have a promo or commercial, still on tape that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The tape gets recycled in one way or another.
Until it fades.
Exactly. So I'm not saying that it's not possible that another copy exists somewhere, but it would have to be because someone took it home, And at this moment in time, in 2020,
it hasn't shown up.
Nothing has shown up besides the actual master pilot film copy on 16 millimeter. So,
which is great because you have the actual good deal. So, but you're still not telling me how do you get your hands on that? Because that's a part of the story that I love.
There's so much history to this that it's hard to keep track of, So you fast forward 9 years or so from 2008 to 2017. And because of collecting and networking and just interacting with people, you make relationships. And so a lot of the dealers, they know me for what I collect, the Ghostbusters and a few other things, Ninja Turtles. And so if you're a dealer and you want to make a quick buck, you know who to call on speed dial for certain things.
Who are you going to call?
Bobby. Exactly. You're going to call me. So what happened was on a random day at the end of July of 2017, and this happens a lot. People come to me just saying, "Hey, Rob, what's this? What's it worth?" Mm-hmm. Or, "Hey, Rob, I got this. Do you want it?" Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. It was just a normal, no different from any other day, business as usual. And this dealer said, "Hey, Rob, I just came back from a haul. I got all this Ghostbuster marketing stuff." And he's like, "I'm going to send you some photos. You just let me know if you want anything." And that's when I grab things that are just amazing because I beat everyone else out because I get first dibs. Mm-hmm. I don't have to fight people on eBay or online auctions.
And that hidden savings account for those moments has to be ready. It better be ready because you never know when this is going to happen, and it happens.
It happens, and it will. And this particular moment where he sent me photos, and it was just amazing. He sent me photos of press kits from the first 2 movies. He sent me, those kits are filled with film slides, and they're filled with photos, and they're filled with, bio information of every actor and actress. And he showed me the making of Ghostbusters book. There was a film can. I'm like, what the heck is this film can? And all it said was Ghostbusters Deke. He didn't know what it was, and the people that sold it to him didn't know what it was. It was just sitting there. It was part of the collection, And so I'm asking him, like, what is this? And it was 16 millimeter. He doesn't have a film projector. I don't have a film projector.
Thankfully,
I'm like,
because this could be easily burned. Just FYI.
Oh yeah.
So thankfully he didn't have a projector neither.
Oh yeah. So basically, film. For those who don't know, film is very flammable.
Yeah, big time. That's why we don't store it. That's why to store film in cans specifically, you need to do it in a very specific place under very specific conditions. Otherwise, it's a time bomb.
Yeah, absolutely. So you don't keep it under heat of any sort. That's why they have vaults that are temperature controlled to be cooled. And so So yeah, it could have been anything, and even if he did try to tell me what it was, if he had a projector, the bulb could have burned it, and then that would have been it.
That was what I was saying.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was just reiterating it, so basically, my negotiating skills worked like this. I said, listen, you don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. You don't have a projector. I don't have a projector. This is going to be a paperweight on display. It's going to be a conversation.
It's a blind date. It's a blind date.
It's a blind date. And it was a blind buy. I mean, it really was. And so we made a deal for a pile of what he bought. I cherry picked it, and so I got it in the mail. And for 2 days, I'm like thinking with my other, collector buddies of Ghostbusters, like, hey, what could this be? And we're thinking it could be a commercial. It said Deke on it. It could have been
one episode,
because the date on it was 1 week prior to the first episode ever airing. So it could have well been. And
you were able to actually take a look at the date and everything before you.
It was written on the can.
Right, but you saw it before.
Yes. So I'm like thinking through my head, like, what could it be? It could be a commercial, it could be an episode. I think I actually joked with someone thinking, hey, what if it's the pilot? Because I've seen the Time Life box at that point. So I'm like, hey, well, just curious. So, what's that? And so I get it in the mail, and I roll the film back, and I see Slimer's hand grabbing for the hot dog out of the trap, and I'm like, oh crap. I roll it back even further, and I see all 4 guys in the tan jumpsuits holding the trap at the very end of the film, and I'm like, oh crap. And now at that point, I rolled it up real quick because I don't want my fingers touching the film anymore. And I just kind of stood there for a minute there, sat down. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And of course, everything happens on the weekend, If you need something, the store's closed on Sundays or something, you always have to wait for the week to come around to do something. So this happened on a Saturday or Sunday, and I'm like thinking to myself, crap, I need someone to ingest this. I need someone to digitize this. And I had to wait all till Monday to talk to someone. And I was afraid. I'm thinking to myself, listen, I don't want to mail this ever again. I don't want it to get lost or damaged in the mail. And a lot of facilities don't deal with, copyrighted material. So I had to find this mom and pop place that just did home videos, but he had all the equipment to do.
A place that you can drive yourself, right?
And a place that I could drive myself. I drove 45 minutes one way to hand deliver this thing.
Oh yeah.
And within 2 or 3 days, I got it back. I drove again, through maybe 3 toll booths to get there, and I got it back on a thumb drive, where he sent me a video copy, but also his machine, what it does is it takes a picture of every frame. So I have high-res JPEGs of every frame in a digital folder on this thumb drive.
Interesting. That's how they digitize. They photograph the frame in
basically.
high-res and then put it together on a animated
timeline. So basically, you got all the JPEGs that are numbered now, and you throw them on a timeline, and they drop in order.
And you turn it into a QuickTime or some sort of video of
exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, his video didn't work for me because the frame rate was different. Film is 24 frames per second. He edited it out and exported it as 29.97.
Broadcast is standard.
Exactly. So I had these ghost frames in the video.
Right.
I'm like, this isn't going to work for me. So I had to actually get the actual frames from him and the raw frames. And that once I watched it, I was able to just watch it on a timeline. I just want to see what it looked like.
So basically, you grabbed the JPEGs and created your own timeline on 24 frames per second.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct. And so I hit the space bar to hit play, and I'm watching it, and I'm seeing all of these little artifacts, flickering on the screen, dirt, hair, whatever.
Right. Which is
common.
Those not in the know, it's not just common, it's just dirt that it pops up, and then it looks like a scratch, or it looks like spiders walking on the frame, but it's basically artifacts. That's what we call artifacts. Yeah, we call it artifacts, and it is just dirt. And most of the time, and this is after the guy did a professional cleaning too, because he doesn't want these artifacts gumming up his machine. Right.
So he actually did dip it in a solution to
You watch. There's a way to watch the film. Correct.
Exactly. But there's still things that get embedded in the actual film.
Mind you, this is especially 16 millimeters. This is very small, and these are microscopical size of dirt, pretty much.
Right. But it amplifies when you blow it up and you watch it on a video.
Correct.
So I watch it, I see the artifacts, and the actual film is degraded to the point where it's yellowed. Because it's film, and it's 30 plus years old.
Right.
You know, it's what happens. I mean, we saw, anyone who saw Star Wars Special Edition, when they did the behind the scenes, saying that if they hadn't done that back in 96, they would have never been able to restore this film because it had degraded so far.
Correct.
Right? And they show the comparisons between the original degraded film and the restored film.
Correct.
And I did the exact same thing with mine, where I show the comparisons. It was a great thing to be able to show people. And I realized quickly, as a video editor, you know, that's my job, as to make a living as a video editor. And so I realized right away that the only way to properly clean this is to go frame by frame.
Oof.
And if you do the math, 24 frames per second for 4.5 minutes, it's a little over 5,500 frames.
It's a lot of work, and then
It's a lot of work.
It's like doing a stop motion with an animation, pretty much.
Yes, essentially, it really is. It's basically stop motion. It's very tedious and it's very time consuming. I spent 4 months in Photoshop, and I actually had to redo a lot of things because I would go back and be like, you know what, not good enough, you know, or I missed something. Because
you were doing this just with restoration purposes. You had no plan in mind, if I recall correctly. You had no plan. This was going nowhere. You just wanted to recover this archaeological find that you were like cleaning the dust of that piece that you found in the desert, pretty much, right?
Pretty much. I mean, here's the thing. I didn't have a relationship with Sony then as I do now because of this. And so I was afraid to even tell them I had it, because I was afraid that there would be lawsuits or, you know, repercussions for having something that should have been in their vault.
Correct.
I have no idea how this got, you know, into the hands of the public.
Yeah, and they can just come and take it.
Just come and take it. But essentially what I learned is that, I mean, without making a big stink about things, I own the physical, it's now a collectible. It's no longer a property. It's a collectible at this point. I don't own the rights to the footage, obviously, but they basically did not make any big stink about who owns the actual physical content, you know, the physical properties, the film itself. So,
but it's also in a limbo, right? Because it's not the pilot, it's not an episode technically. It's technically a pilot, but it's technically not an episode. Yet it could be considered promotional material, and then if it is promotional, then, you know, you're not gonna make a lawsuit do it through.
Well, not only that though, because it's already even that though, because those who own the Time Life box set already have a copy of it. Essentially, you know, the content is on YouTube for heaven's sake. So, and so, anyways, without, you know, going too deep into legal stuff, I mean, basically, I didn't want to raise any red flags until I did my part, you know, because I figure at the very least, if they do make a big stink, and I have to turn over the film, I still have my restoration version. I still have the digital copies of it, you know, and fans can at least still see that. But then, twist of fate, you know, the way that the way that the universe came together, they were actually very happy that I did it.
Or the ghost dimension.
Yeah.
The ghost dimension in this case.
Yeah, I mean, because I saved them 5 months worth of labor, you know.
Or more.
Yeah.
Because if you throw this in a production company, you're just gonna go into a slow burner. I mean, let's face it, like, you pour passion into it. It wasn't a gig on your end. You poured passion into restoring frame by frame. I remember when I saw that with my own eyes, that you went frame by frame. I remember, I don't know if you remember, but I told you many times, why didn't you use the timeline that the guy gave you? How come? Why are you gonna go frame by frame? But then your eyes changed, and you were like possessed by one of these ghosts from the movie, and then you were like, no, this needs to be done properly, and the color, and then you gave me a lecture on the color and the temperature and all that. And I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you. This is a passion-driven project that you decided to do without any means of profit or anything.
No, not at all. I mean, I have not made a dime off of this. That was not the point of it. The point of it was to just get, because here's the thing, it is my version of the restoration. I am not a licensed restorer, but I know enough to get the job done. And I would always hope that one day Sony, with their equipment and their standards, to give it their own shot at it. But here's the thing, it was 2017, and after the issues, I will say, with the previous movie in 2016, the Ghostbuster franchise was exactly in a good spot.
Right. We're not gonna dwell on that. We're gonna keep
exactly.
It
But you can at least agree, though, that the franchise was not exactly in a great spot in 17.
From a certain point of view, yes.
From a certain point of view. So, for anything, I didn't think that Real Ghostbusters was going to be a high priority. If I handed over the film, and I would say, I could say, hey, listen, I hope you guys restore it, and it could just go on a shelf in the vault for another 30 years without being touched. And with that possibility, I couldn't have that. So I did the restoration. Then I made it known that I have it, and I showed them the actual copy of the restoration. They loved it. We worked out an agreement so that things don't get too ugly, because like I said, I was afraid that they would take legal action and just come and take it, like Men in Black.
Right, Blackfire, pretty much.
Yeah. So,
but let's face it, they were lucky as well, because not only you are a passionate collector of the franchise, you happen to be an editor, and you suffer from OCD. So it's like the perfect combination to restore this piece.
I mean, when you think about it, it's crazy, because this could have landed in anyone's hands, I mean, this could have ended up on eBay or online auctions, and some random person who just, he doesn't let anyone else know that he collects, but he collects. And things that fall into that black hole of his collection, they don't escape.
And there are millions of items, like, we all think they're lost, and they're just hidden in a private collection somewhere,
Yep. And it's unfortunate to some degree. I understand it to some degree, but this was one of those items that I'm actually grateful that didn't happen that way,
Me too.
So,
and by the time that I got to know the story and we would film you, and you weren't done with the restoration, you haven't approached Sony at the
not at that time, no.
So what happened between then and now?
So after you guys filmed our version, our episodes, our segments for Plastic Crack, and I had finished the film, the restoration, I had shown it to Sony. I reached out to a few people that know people at Ghost Corp, and so through a few phone call interactions, I made my own little contact there, who I still email back and forth, who still comes to me, with some projects, and we they were very happy that someone put this together, saved them the hassle, and it just
the money,
a lot of money. And honestly, though, it came at the right time, because by the time I had finished the restoration, the 34th anniversary of the movie was just around the corner. And so their marketing team thought this would be a great way to introduce it back to the fan base, because at that year, June 8th, Ghostbusters Day of 2018, they said, well, you know what, we're going to reopen the Ghostbusters website, and it's going to be part of a 1-year hype for the 35th, the big 35. So they said, what's a good way to introduce the opening of the website? We have all this other content, but let's bring Real Ghostbusters into it. This is a perfect opportunity to release it.
How exciting.
And it was great. And so we did a whole, legal thing where I had to sign a contract saying, okay, I, release this restoration to Sony, but I still get recognition, which is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Almost unheard of. This is their content.
They can just take it and then give you a lawsuit and tell you to shut up.
Exactly.
So that was really well done on their behalf. I remember when we had this conversation over the phone, and that you were telling me, like, getting credit from, and I have a great relationship with Sony. I have nothing against Sony, but but getting this is unheard of. So I'm super glad that they went that route and recognized you and gave you proper credit where credit is due.
Thank you. It was the way it could not have ended up any better than what it did.
Mm-hmm.
It really couldn't have. I mean, the planets aligned perfectly to the point where it got it into my possession, and then I did what I had to do, and then I moved it on to the next step, and they were able to take the baton and take it over the finish line with the website, and then
elevated.
A year later, this is what blew my mind. The 35th anniversary, it came out with what they always do. Every 5 years, there's an anniversary, and that comes with a new Blu-ray set, a new, special features that they didn't release any other year. Mm-hmm. And so the Blu-ray set for the first two movies, well, the only two movies, for Ghostbusters 35th anniversary, the special feature is my pilot, my restoration. Mm-hmm. And it actually says restored by
Robert Barbieri.
And it's crazy. And so the only thing, though, I will say that I wish they did was, because otherwise I wouldn't have to do this with you right now. I wish they actually sent a crew or film me right now like this, explaining, putting it into context, because there is nothing.
Well, I'm glad they didn't, because I get to do it.
Well, now you get the exclusive rights. You get the exclusive rights, because that's the one thing I will say that I was disappointed that the normal fan base has no clue, mm-hmm. Why this is a big deal, And
this is why I wanted it to talk. There's so much that we can talk about, because we're both collectors, and you have a vast amount of knowledge about a myriad of things. But I know that this project is so special and dear on your heart, and I wanted to pay credit to what you did for the fandom and what you did for the collecting community. And I'm actually glad that they didn't send a crew, so we got to do this instead.
No, absolutely. It, like I said, it could not have ended up any better than it did. It really couldn't have. And so I'm grateful to the opportunity that this has presented, because of this, it has opened doors with me and Sony to do other projects where they come to me for photos of my collection. Like, hey, we need this for this. They do a lot of fun things on Facebook and social media, and they need photos of old stuff. And it's hard to think that they don't have this, a copy of every figure in a vault somewhere.
Right.
But they don't, and so they rely on the fan base to help out. And it's great that there's that interaction.
Oh yeah. And now, if you think about it, and you might have not contemplated this, but now you. Due to your effort, you cross the border. You're no longer you still are, of course, on the collecting fan base side. You're on the other side now. You're part of the realm. You're part of the Ghostbuster universe. Yeah. And that's super neat. It didn't,
I didn't contemplate that until after I saw the Blu-ray and people were talking to me and saying, you're part of this now, because the website can go away again, and then the online version that has my little credit can go away at any point. But people who own the physical copy of the Blu-ray, will always forever see my name next to it. It's crazy.
You have to wear that proudly, because you earn it. I mean, it was not easy.
No, it wasn't. And the one thing that we both actually have overlooked as part of the whole everything that's happened since we last talked about this was that not only did Kevin Altieri, thank me publicly on his website, on his Facebook page, saying that this looked better than it did back in '85 when he actually put the print up on the screen, mm-hmm. And that right alone, I was like, okay, I'm good. I've peaked. I'm good. But then a few months later, after it aired on the website, after San Diego Comic-Con, my contact sent me a little care package, some little booth, items from like a Ghostbusters comic, a pin, a shirt, little things here and there. But then there was an envelope inside the box, and I'm like, what is this? I open it, and it's a printed letter, but it's hand signed, and it was written by Ivan Reitman, thanking me for.
I had it in my notes. That was my ending tip. But yeah,
I spoiled it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, please go, because I love that part. I remember when you posted that, and I actually called you. I don't know if you remember that. I actually called you because that's just mind blowing. I was so happy for you.
I mean, I'm stuttering because I can't find the words. It's just all these things that happened since finding this random find.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Kevin Altieri confirmed to me that it is the master copy from Japan. It is the very first copy that came from the studio in Japan that was mailed to LA. And because it doesn't have an audio track. And so come full circle, if he had never made a copy on VHS of his own work, there is no audio cassette.
It would be lost.
It would be half of a promotion, for that pilot, right. It would be incomplete. And so for him to have the only copy of the audio, and for me to have the only high quality filmed copy of the film, the pilot, to put it all together to piece it all back together from 35 years ago, it's amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing. And I'm so glad that you happened to be the one that found it. And it was like a meant to be type of thing, if you will. So, I'm so happy about that you actually took the time so we can do this and talk about this. Where do you see this going in the future, or are you settled with this episode of your life?
Are you saying in collecting?
No. With the pilot, missing pilot.
With the concept pilot, I think for the most part, I'm done. There are still a few loose ends where I'm curious to see if something can be done to return the actual copy to Sony. Because let's face it, I've already done what I can with it, and film degrades even as we were speaking. Mm-hmm. I don't have the proper facilities, so I think the last nail in the coffin for this venture would be to somehow work something out where I can get it into the vault.
Make sure it's properly stored.
Make sure it's properly stored mm-hmm. and protected. And I'm still doing a lot of projects with Sony for Ghostbuster related, things. So I do think it's going to happen. It's just that I think the timing has to be right. I'm very curious to see how the next movie turns out with, merchandise and sales and that kind of thing, where I think it might be the good time to bring it up. So in general, I think that's the only thing that's left. I mean, I'm always hunting for the original artwork, more cells for the pilot. They do pop up, but they get snagged so quickly, I'll
bet. And now that it's in everybody's radar, it's going to be harder to...
that's the hardest part about, being a passionate collector that wants to show what he's found, is that you now bring it on everyone else's radar, Mm-hmm. My friends keep telling me, Rob, you're creating your own headache and your own frustration. And it's like, it's all about finding a balance, because if I had not shown people what I'm into and what I collect, then these dealers would never even approach me, which means I would have gotten the pilot right. to begin with.
And you actually want to share, and you actually want these things are museum worth of display items
in a museum, or at least known, let people know, like, hey, it still exists.
There's also privacy that we all need to respect. So I'm absolutely glad that we get to film and we get to show and we get to share, because even if these things don't end up in museums, this new media or this type of media is a great way to share this type of things and for other collectors out there, and not just here in the States, but across the globe.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, this new platform, this new outlet, to let people know that this stuff exists. I'm not going to give you my Google Maps address, but
of course, of course.
Although I do break the rule every once in a while, as I have a lot of followers on Instagram and whatever, and they know I'm in Orlando, and they say, "Hey, Rob, when I'm in town, can I come see the collection?" Absolutely.
And your doors are always open, to the best of my knowledge. I'm a witness of that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of followers on Instagram and Facebook where, they know I'm in Orlando, and it's a very highly tourism destination, as you may know. So when they're in town with their families, I usually get, the guys that want to get away from the kids and the wife, say, hey, you guys go to Disney. Yeah, I'm gonna go check out Rob's collection. Or sometimes they bring everybody. I don't mind, but here's the thing: sometimes the wives are not into it. They don't want to look at,
Yeah, they don't want to look at a house full of toys, and then sometimes a mischievous intention because they're. I also know of collectors that they go and say, well, look, he has a full house full of toys. You shouldn't get mad at me and stuff like that. So yeah,
for one room. Yeah, don't get mad at me for one room. Yeah, exactly. Well, one of our mutual acquaintances, he actually brought his wife in.
Carlos Veron.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I will never forget this day where he brought his wife Christy in, and he, to the living room where the Star Wars and the Ninja Turtles are, and he just kind of like waves his arms around. Look at all this, and he says, "Honey, I swear it'll never get this bad."
Well, I was my reference was him, actually. I didn't want to say his name, but you did.
Hey, all's fair.
It's all, but Carlos is such a cool guy. I mean, I cannot wait to release season 2 because everybody's in for, you saw part of season 2. So there's an aspect of Carlos that we're going to get to see in season 2 that is super interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited. I can't wait.
I'm so happy that of the result of your restoration. You did an amazing job. I'm so lucky as well to see the before and after, and to even from afar to see those updates, and when you got that when you got that letter and everything. And I'm so happy for you because you deserve it. What you've done for the community is impeccable, and you deserve every single piece of credit. It should be more, if you ask me.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bobby, for being here today. Thank you again for opening this new venture of us. We're hoping to give this type of content away for those. As you know, I can't put my finger on when this is going to air, but I sincerely hope that when it airs, everybody's out of quarantine.
Oh, absolutely.
If they don't, at least we're trying to give something out for people to get distracted from the financial and the health and everything that's going on. So that's where we keep the whole thing super light. So thank you so much for being here today, and looking forward to talk to you in the near future. We have a lot of things that we can talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And who are you gonna call?
Bobby. I'm gonna call Bobby. Bye.
Have a good one, buddy.
Please remember that all of these episodes were taped during the crazy 2020 pandemic while we were all locked down and going nuts. So bear with us. Also, and I found out not so long ago, so don't feel bad, that if you hit the bell below, the little tiny icon that looks like a bell, YouTube automatically will let you know when the next episode is about to come out. So make it easy, just hit the bell. Like, subscribe, do all of that stuff, but hit the bell. So next week we're gonna have the super amazing Jenny Surface with a colorful world of My Little Pony. We're gonna make an attempt to cover every single country that either produce or distribute My Little Pony. It's gonna be a very interesting joyride around the globe. Don't miss it.
Plastic Chats is a series of special interviews that complements the Plastic Crack documentary series. The interviews are made with informational, entertainment, and educational purposes. Neither this short nor Plastic Crack documentary series are sponsored or endorsed by the companies or brands mentioned in this episode. The comments made on this episode do not reflect the point of view of the production company of these series or employees and associates.